In this video, we're going to talk about section 11.1, the first part, which is about systems of measurement. So, the first type of measurement they kind of devote some time to is what we call non-standard units of measurement. Now, suppose, I don't know, you find yourself wanting to measure an item, but you don't have a tape measure, a ruler, or something to measure it with. Yet you really want to measure this item so that you can go to the store and purchase what you need. Okay. You might then maybe, I don't know, grab a pen and say, okay, so it's about 1.5 pen lengths worth. Okay. And then you go to the store and you bring the same pen with you and use it. That would be a non-standard unit of measurement. Okay. We have some units of measurement that have kind of floated around society uh, based on what was available at the time. These particular ones are attributed to the Egyptians and the Babylonians. The first is a span. Oops. Span is a measurement, or is the rough measurement from your thumb to your pinky. Now, of course, it's not 100% the same for every person, but the idea was that, an adult, probably male at the time, if he used his hand to measure something, you could kind of use that as a standard unit of measurement. It was 4 spans long. And another person, maybe if they're on the smaller side, they might also say, oh, yeah, okay, I know how long that is based on my hand. A foot, that's right, a foot was the measurement from heel to toe. Sorry, that's supposed to be an H. There we go. Heel to toe. A hand was another one. That was closed finger. Closed finger width of the hand. And then cubit. Cubit was approximately your elbow to middle finger. That length. And there you go. And you've probably heard span, cubit, foot, hand at some point, maybe in history or reading some sort of historical document. You might have seen those units of measurement mentioned using just what they had on hand at the time. Now we use the English units of measurement here in the United States. And we measure length. Starting with our smallest is inches, feet, yards, miles. Now, often when we go smaller than inches, we do switch to the metric system, but we'll talk about that in the next video. For volume, we use ounces, cups, pints, quarts, and gallons. And then weight, we use also ounces again, pounds, and tons. Now, this conversion table I posted on Canvas under modules. It's actually under course information, under handouts. And it's got all of the conversions for what I called US units, but it's the English units. And then the metric units, which, like I said, we'll talk about in the next video, listed. It also uses all the abbreviations, and below it has conversions between the US and metric system. This handout will be provided on the final exam. You will not have to memorize these. There is some like small things you might be asked, like days in the week or something like that. But any type of measurement like these, you will be using this conversion table. You don't have to have it memorized. Okay, so going back, I would maybe pause the video for a second, go grab this conversion sheet, and we're going to do some examples that uses the conversion table so that you can practice. Okay, so let me go ahead and start with, let's convert, like we'll start with some basics, 1 mile into yards. 1 mile equals how many yards? Okay, so this is what is going to be expected on the exam. Okay, so I'm expecting to see this process of conversion. This process of conversion uses fractions, multiplication, and ratios to do it. Actually, not ratios, it would be rates technically. Yeah, no, I guess they're kind of ratios since they're supposed to be the same. Okay, here's what you do. You start with the thing you were trying to convert, the 1 mile. And since I want to convert it into yards, I'm going to grab the table and I'm going to look at it and say, oh, okay, so how many yards are in a mile? Okay, and I notice it doesn't give me that. What it does give me is how many feet are in a mile. So I have 5,280 feet in 1 mile. And I set my fraction up so that miles is in the denominator and the numerator, and therefore they cancel out. That unit of measurement cancels out. And what I'm left with is now in terms of feet. So I see that I do know that there are 3 feet in 1 yard. So I'm going to set up that fraction where I'm going to put feet in the denominator. That way feet will cancel with this here. And then the 1 yard will go up here in the numerator. And here's what I'm left with. In the numerators, I see I have 1 times 5,280 times 1 all over 1 times 1 times 3. Or in other words, I have 5,280 over 3. And that will be yards because I've canceled everything else out. So grabbing my calculator, dividing it by 3, 5,280 divided by 3 gives me 1,760 yards. And that's how I would convert that. So I'm going to repeat this process multiple times so we can get the hang of it. Okay, let's try another conversion. Let's do 19 yards. I want to convert 19 yards to inches. All right, so I start by writing what I am working with, 19 yards. And I look at my conversion table and I see, okay, 1 yard is 3 feet, which actually I know that from above. This time though, I'm going to switch where I put the yard. I'm going to put yard in the numerator, feet in the denominator. That way I'm canceling yards. And then I see that 1 foot equals 12 inches. So I'm going to put feet, 1 foot equals 12 inches. So that way feet will cancel. And what I am left with then in the numerator is 19 times 3 times 12. By the way, sorry, this is over 1. Always just putting it over 1. And then 1, it's all over 1 technically, right, in the denominator. So I'm not going to write that. I hope you guys are comfortable with me just not writing the 1 in the denominator. And that's inches because that's what I was left over. And getting my calculator, I get 684 inches. All right, let's try another one. Let's try converting 2 quarts into cups. And for those who, bake a lot, you could probably do this just some multiplications, but I want you to show the process of writing out these ratios and multiplying and canceling. Okay, so here we go. 2 quarts Put it over 1. Okay, looking at my sheet, I know 2 pints equal 1 quart. Putting the quart in the denominator, so those cancel. And then 2 cups equal 1 pint. So quarts are canceling, pints are canceling, and I'm left with 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 cups, which is 8 cups. Now, some of you might know, again, if you're comfortable with a lot of baking or cooking or whatnot, that 1 quart equals 4 cups. And you could have been like, well, couldn't I use that conversion? And the answer is yes, you could have, but you would have first needed to state this because it's not on the conversion sheet. So you need to actually make this statement. Then you would start the conversion. You would do the 2 quarts over 1 times 1 quart over 4 cups. And you're like, cool, that cancels. And I'm left with 8 times, oops, sorry, 2 times 4, which gives me 8 cups or 8 cups. Okay, so yes, you can use a conversion that isn't on the conversion sheet as long as you state that conversion, and of course, as long as it's correct. But I still expect to see that work because it's this process of converting that we're teaching. Okay, let's try another one. And in fact, if you want to go ahead, if you feel like you're getting the hang of it, maybe pause the video, try it yourself. Give it a shot. 7.5 gallons equals how many quarts? All right, so using my setup here, 7.5 gallons over 1. And then from the conversion sheet, I see that 1 gallon equals 4 quarts. So I'm going to put gallon on the denominator, quarts in the numerator. So gallons cancel. And that's done. Like I'm left with what I want. So I'm going to just take 7.5, oops, 7.5 times 4. And that's going to be quarts. And that's going to give me 30 quarts. And there you go. All right, let's do one more of these conversions. 3,200 pounds into tons. Okay, so 3,200 pounds. Oops, I don't need to put the S. Over 1 times, okay, so 1 ton is 2,000 pounds. So let's cancel. Okay, so this time I have another division where I have 3,200 over 2,000, and then tons is left over. Oh, actually, I just realized I didn't use the abbreviation. Let me use the abbreviation. It's good for us to practice with. So if this will let me erase, there we go. It's starting to finally cooperate. Tons. Okay, grabbing my calculator. 3,200 divided by 2,000 is 1.6 tons. Okay, so they kind of do this exercise where they're like, what is the most appropriate measurement? What is the most appropriate measurement? All right, and I'll give you some examples. So here, we'll start with the first one. I'll kind of answer it, talk about why, and then I'll give you the next ones to try, okay? So a blender, what would be the most appropriate measurement? And we're talking about in the English system, English units. What would be the most appropriate measurement to use for a blender? Well, because a blender is typically measuring volume, I'd be looking at the volumes, and of those, gallon is typically too much and ounces way too small. So I'm kind of leaning towards quart. Quarts would probably be most appropriate for a blender. Kind of get the idea? You're kind of trying to say what seems like there would be multiple of, but not so many that it's kind of ridiculous. Okay. Could you use ounces? Yes. Is that really reasonable? No, it's probably more reasonable to talk about how many quarts you can have in the blender. Okay. So here, let me give you some other items and you could kind of determine that. So I'll give you a teaspoon, a kitchen sink, a truck, and sorry, that's okay. That's not how you spell truck. There's no N in there. And a pine tree. So if you want to pause the video to give it a thought, that's fine. Now, a teaspoon is typically, again, a form for volume. So the smallest one would make the most sense, ounces. Kitchen sink, again, is, again, volume, thinking volume. This time, it would make sense to talk about gallons, the largest one. Okay, but a truck leaves the idea of volume behind here. A truck would be probably more interested in its weight. So for a truck, we'd probably use tons. And because they weren't specific about the type of truck, I'm kind of thinking it could be like a large truck, like a significant size. So tons does make a lot of sense for that. And then a pine tree height would probably be something we'd be more interested in. I do believe there's an argument to be made for feet, but yards would probably be the most appropriate for a pine tree. We're kind of leaning towards the largest one we can that makes sense. All right. Like where we'd at least hit a 1. All right. And that's where pine tree yards will make sense. So that's how the book kind of measures it. It looks for the largest amount you possibly can to hit 1 at least. But not necessarily under that. We want to at least go over 1 unit of measurement. So at least 1 yard tall, which of course a pine tree is definitely typically more than 1 yard tall. And again, since we're not specifying, we can assume it's a very large pine tree and therefore multiple yards would make sense. And there you go.